What you're looking at is a 1991 Honda Accord LX 2.2 liter single overhead cam. Today we're going to be replacing the exhaust system, the entire exhaust system, and we started with the exhaust manifold. Now to take this exhaust manifold off the stock one, first you have to remove this, which is the heat shield for the alternator. This goes down in here like that. There's 3 bolts to take that off. Once that's off, you're looking at the heat shield for the actual manifold itself. So there's 3 bolts to take this off. There's one here, one on the other side, and one down on the bottom. This hole here is for the oxygen sensor, the O2 sensor, to connect to the manifold. So first you take off the alternator heat shield, then you take these 3 bolts off, take this exhaust manifold heat shield off, throw those to the side. Then you're going to have the manifold still connected. There's 9 bolts. They're actually studs that come out of the engine, out of the cylinder head, and the nuts are on the outside, so they're pretty easy to remove. Once you take those nuts off, pull the manifold off, and there's a flange on the bottom here with 3 bolts that you want to disconnect. In this case they were pretty rusted, so we weren't able to get them off, but it doesn't really make a difference because we're replacing the entire system. So I just went ahead and cut it off. Much easier. Use a sawzall, saved me some time, a lot of energy. And so now that that's removed, there's this manifold gasket, which is just a little thin sheet metal gasket. It's on there like this. Take that off, and now we have to go from underneath. Okay, so now that the exhaust manifold is removed, we're gonna work on removing the pipe in between the manifold and the catalytic converter. Now again, we're replacing the whole system, so I'm gonna save myself a lot of time, and I'm just gonna sawzall this off because I know these bolts going into the catalytic converter are very rusty and they're most likely gonna snap or just not come off. So we're going to cut them off, save a lot of time. Here you can see where I made the initial cutoff I showed you underneath the manifold itself, right in front of the oil pan. I just used a sawzall, cut that off. And also there's a bracket here that you can see that these 2 bolts will go in right here, and this mounts above the oil pan and holds the exhaust in place. So once you remove those 2, we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so as you can see, I made another cut here behind the catalytic converter, which would sit in this area. This is the heat shield for it, and there was a strap holding it up, one of these rubber hangers right here that would hold the catalytic converter and that front pipe in place. Okay, so what you're looking at is the manifold. I made my first cut here, and this is that bracket I was showing you underneath, the 2 bolts. This is the hook that will go into that rubber strap to hold the exhaust up, and this is the catalytic converter. Made another cut right behind it here, and next I'll be taking out that S pipe. Okay, so what you're looking at is after I just made the cut right behind the silencer, which would go right here. So you got the catalytic converter in the front, you have another little pipe, then you have the silencer here, and then you have that S bend, which we're going to cut out next. This here. Okay, so the next cut that I made was right behind the silencer. Now, holding this pipe on There's these two brackets that go into another set of rubber hangers. One of the reasons that we're replacing this exhaust is we know it had a lot of leaks. There's one of them. That's a major problem. So that's why this piece had to come out. The next cut I'm going to make is taking the S-pipe out. Okay, so what you're looking at is the complete exhaust system that I cut out of the 91 Accord. You have the exhaust manifold, you have the down tube that goes into the catalytic converter, and you have the silencer, and then you have the muffler. So we just cut it out of there to save ourselves a lot of time. The whole pipe is bad all the way through. So now we'll be installing new headers and totally new pipe.